as much fun as we're having is 7, and I like to respect everybody's time.
You're so
So I call the January 7th, 2025 regular board meeting of Glencoe Park District to order. Lisa, please call the roll and state the time.
It's 7 p.m. Commissioner Bourne? Commissioner Colby?
Here.
Commissioner Snyder?
Here.
Commissioner Spector?
Here.
President Spain?
Here. Okay, consent agenda items A, B, and C are routine. Does any commissioner want any item pulled from the consent agenda items? Okay, hearing nothing. I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bourne?
Yes.
Jacoby?
Yes.
Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Spector?
Yes.
President Spain?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. We don't have any members from the attending tonight, so we can move forward. Director Shepard will share a view of the review of 2024 and this lengthy list of major accomplishments.
I'm going to read every single one and explain in great detail every single one. I'm just kidding. I put the list of the review of our annual goals and accomplishments in the board packet. I'm not going to read every single one. I'm just going to highlight a few. Obviously, most notably this year was to successfully pass a referendum by 70% of the vote. Obviously, that secures vital resources for the districts for future growth and sustainability. This is the 70% of the vote, and I think you all realize what an excellent job we all did on this. Very rarely do you get 70% of the vote. They usually say 30% of a given is going to vote no, and so we captured everybody else. Statistically, this is incredible. So kudos to all of you and the whole team. We are recredited for the IPRA IAPD Distinguished Accreditation with a total score of 502.63 out of 500 base points. This puts us really in the top 1% of park districts in the state of Illinois. Very rarely do you get over 500 base points for this accreditations. Completed our 10-year comprehensive plan with, I believe, insightful input from the community, the board, the staff. It really gives us a roadmap for the future of park districts. The level of communication input we got for the community really sets us on the right direction for what the community wants from their park district. And then most recently, we rewarded the ASA grant for $600,000 so for West Park. So very excited about that also. If I go through some of the things internally, we secured L6 for our IT, and they've been doing a phenomenal job in saving the district a lot of money. So that, while it was a scary move, just when you switch IT providers, staff did an amazing job with that transition. L6 have proven their weight in gold. So that was a very good accomplishment this year. I believe that we secured and quality staff in our children's circle by implementing a paid leave policy for grade 2 and 6 employees, enhancing their employee benefits and satisfaction. That was huge. We implemented a district-wide security audit and active shooter training. Obviously, in this world, that's something I thought 20 years ago I would never have dreamed I had to do. And I think we are one of the forefronts in this movement of securing our facilities and our events in the park district world. Kudos to our team for that. Bobby and Kyle really took the lead on that. This year, I was past chair of IPR. I'll be going off the board in January. And I was selected as a fellow for the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administration. So there's only 123 professional members throughout the entire nation. So love that. Bobby has served on the Purdue Finance Committee, which is funny, being the rec guy. So that's great. He gives a different perspective. And John continues to present at IPRA conference. It's actually one of the most entertaining finance sessions he did last year. He'll do it again this year. Not to mention, he achieved the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Goes to you. Just another highlight was the goats grazing at Milton Park.
Yes.
That just shows the innovation of a team. And here we're working for sustainability, and it was such a great PR move and great education for the community on sustainability. So love those goats. And so does most of the community. Erin, she really hasn't talked a lot about this, but the welcome wagon bag and welcome brochure, that's something that has always been around, but her She really amped that up and really is getting out in the community to capture those new families, all those new families coming into town. We do handwritten cards. We do that extra stuff, which I think gets people into the door and working with us. We continue to partner with District 35, the Village Chamber, FSG, Library, and many initiatives. So that community partnership, and we're continuing that into the new year, which I'll probably bring up in the January board meeting. We completed a comprehensive community survey that is telling us what we need to do going forward. Just right. Oh, we can't forget about the Chase the Panda event and video. It was just fun and really got started the track of doing some running events for younger kids. So starting to get them out and active in the community. If you build it, they will come. So Kids Club grew by 31%. I know, isn't that huge? Love it. Really, our vision of providing a place that isn't just sitting there and studying, but actually having fun and recreating after school with your friends, more like a home approach, and hanging out with your friends and having a great time really is paying off, and people are appreciating it and signing up. So our school days off programs continue to rise with over 759 participants, over 25 programs. So that I will find out what the increase of that is, but that was great. When people say that there's not anything for adults, I would beg to differ. We have fitness, we have cultural arts, we have ceramics, we have painting, pickleball leagues, everything you can think of. Kudos to Bobby. He's bringing in Finish Strong Athletics to our community next month. Not only would that be good for our community, but it's actually brings people into Glencoe, and hopefully they see that and they want to sign up for our beach and get familiar with this community. So we're excited about that, and will be a very lucrative camp for us to do also. We received 99% positive feedback in the overall satisfaction for the 2024 camp season. 99% for the camp season. That's huge. You know, hundreds of families rely on us for safe care of their children when they're working, and that's just amazing. We saw 100% positive feedback for camp staff and customer service. Love that. The beach, I can't say enough about not only their customer service, but also the safety of the beach, and how they they take it very seriously, the safety aspects that they have, along with Weinberg Ice Rink continues to be a hub, and they continue to make it even more special throughout the year. Children's Circle, we just keep on making that program better and enhancing it, and we look forward to, we just hired our new early childhood director who starts on Monday, and we look forward to continued improvements next year. Anything else that I'm not going to read everything, but I hit the highlights. Any thoughts, comments?
You guys are amazing.
What?
Goats are very air. I did.
Goats.
For you ever? Goats.
Oh yeah, I've done that.
You guys ever?
It's hilarious.
Done this?
They're a different kind of goat than we bring in for grazing.
Yes, they're very small. Is it expensive or? Yeah.
It's a good one-off. I've done it before at a winery, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yoga and wine.
Goats are in. So like.
They're totally in.
Like 2025. Yeah. Think about expanding
I did
upon
8 years ago.
the community and things like that. Go place to go. There.
Totally in.
I mean, I didn't. I was surprised.
You were surprised? St. Charles Park District has a farm, and they've been doing goat yoga for 10 years. I don't know if Glenview has yoga goats or not. Maybe it's something we check into. Yeah. Yeah, with them. Should go yoga. You take care of them, we'll use them.
I just have to say this list is really commendable and impressive. I know we were in the top 1% for accreditation, but we've got to be in the top 0.1%.
I believe we are. I would say that. In the state of Illinois, I would say we're in the top 1% of park districts in the state.
Would that be for number one?
That would be number one. Yeah.
Any other comments?
Yeah, it's just an exceptional year. And actually, not so much exceptional, it's just from a very high level, it was even more extraordinary than usual. The amount of funding raised, the satisfaction, creativity. No, congratulations on a great year.
Thank you. Appreciate your support.
You and staff.
Great team.
The next item on the agenda is regarding approval of the bond ordinance. I see on the agenda, it says first reading.
Yep, it's first reading, so we'll approve it.
Okay, and
next
so
board
this is a pretty lengthy, and I only see quoted here.
That's
the
all you have to
first
read is this.
paragraph.
Yep.
Okay. So we've been provided the language, which you can see in the packet, for the ordinance for the approval of our referendum general obligation bonds. And it was included in the board packet, which I will now read. So it's the top of page this is. Okay. Ordinance providing for the issue of not to exceed $14,700,000 general obligation park bonds series 2025 for the purpose of paying the cost of those capital projects set forth in the ballot proposition approved by the voters of the district at the November 5th, 2024 general election, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof. Okay. Any questions or board discussion regarding the resolution? It's pretty standard.
Yep.
I'm assuming the bond council put this together.
They did.
Okay, well, it sounds like that's what we voted on, and that's
Yep.
what the voters voted on.
Yep.
So
So we'll take action at at the January board meeting, 2 weeks.
okay, in 2 weeks, so we have back-to-back board meeting.
And Andrew, Kim, our bond counsel, is happy to come to the meeting if the board thinks that's necessary.
I don't think so, because we already went over, we've determined the timing already, and we don't know what the rates are going to be. Like, I don't know that there's much more to add from the November discussion to today.
Yeah, we're still planning on closing in early March. So to your point, we'll have to see what the interest rates look like at that point, and that'll dictate what will be our deposit into our capital project fund.
Sounds good. Thanks for all the, I'm sure there was a lot of time spent getting this put together. Thank you for that. Okay, next we have a Fund 65, 68, 69 capital discussion.
Excellent.
Thanks, Kyle.
Kyle will lead this discussion.
Thank you, President Spain. Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everybody. So excited tonight to be proposing to the board our capital project funds for fiscal year 25-26. I'll structure this presentation the way I've done it in previous years. We'll go through each individual fund one by one, covering the projects. Feel free to stop me along the way for any questions, comments. It could be as we go item by item or at the end of each fund or toward the end of the presentation. Quick little recap. The Fund 65 is our operating capital or keeping the lights on fund. This is going to be driven by our Fund 65 heat sheets, as well as input from staff in the respective areas regarding their operational needs, typically smaller projects in scale. Fund 68 is new this year. This is our referendum capital funding source. This will be the grouping of projects that were approved by the public in the referendum process. And Fund 69 will be our traditional master plan capital fund, which the board is familiar with. We'll start with Fund 65. Again, stop me along the way if you need to. So just quick little recap for Fund 65 from this previous year, just to refresh the board's memory. We did a tri-deck mower replacement. We had a series of IT network upgrades. The 3 individual playground shade structures were installed at the early childhood playground. The TAKIF sanitary ejector pumps were replaced here at TAKIF for the lower level of the building. Both of our elevator controllers were upgraded, as well as installing new back rear parking lot lights and security lights for that lot that was pretty dimly lit previously. We did gym equipment upgrades, including a controller for the curtains, batting cage, and basketball standards, as well as replacing the equipment's motors. We have a commercial fridge replacement for the early childhood kitchen, and the fitness studio wood floors were refinished, and the gym floor got a second year recoat. There was unfortunately one carryover project, and it is again truck number 6 is replacement. If the board recalls, 2 years ago, we attempted to purchase the truck through a public bid and got no responsible bids. This previous year, we tried to procure through a cooperative purchasing alliance and were also unsuccessful. That order was placed in March, and the update in December is that our vehicle has still not been scheduled for production. The reason likely being due to the color choice. It's not a common color, and Ford won't just put into production a single F-250 in this specific color. So staff is considering a different approach here this year to make sure we can keep replacing our fleet as it's aging out. At a future board meeting, we'd be looking for the board to approve an authorization to purchase a F-250 up to a predetermined price. That truck could either be a new color if we wanted to go to a more standard color like a black, or the other option would be to purchase really any color truck and put a wrap on it to keep our themed color with logo. So we think this is the best approach to make sure we're continuing to update our fleet and not falling further behind in our replacement schedule. And the discussion about whether to change colors or go with a wrap can be had at a later time. We don't have to hash it out tonight. But that will be the one carryover project into next fiscal year. So now we'll get into the proposed projects for this upcoming fiscal year. Again, Fund 65 is our Keeping the Lights On operating capital fund. Again, driven by our Fund 65 heat sheets and discussions with staff. We'll start with our parks operation improvements. The first of which is a utility truck with garbage attachment. This would be replacing our current garbage truck, affectionately named Dumpy. Dumpy is 14 years old. It is a light-duty Ford Ranger. It has no airbags, and it has a small capacity, and the dump bed is currently rotting away. Staff feels that it is time to replace this vehicle. We would propose the new vehicle be an F-250 with a garbage attachment with 3 times the capacity of Dumpy. This would improve operational efficiency, meaning you could go out for 3 times as long without having to come back to dump. Also, the proposed truck and implement would have multiple capabilities. It could be used in other parts of the season or either for snow plowing or towing as needed. Dumpy is, again, a light-duty Ford Ranger. It really serves one and one purpose only. Then next we have Shelton Gazebo refurbishment. This would be for the facade and roof. I don't know if we've seen it up close recently, but the roof is starting to pop and wear. The cedar shake shingles need to be replaced. It's also hard to tell in the picture, but the decorative cedar wrap and trim work around the structure is beginning to pop. It's scratched up, it's fading. We are recommending keeping the existing look to the structure. The steel uprights are in good shape, so we'd have a carpenter come in and basically recreate the look of that shelter and then redo the roof. Any questions on park operations, or keep going and we can touch base at the end of the 65? All right, next we have the facility and admin improvements. First of which is the Takeoff parking lot and interior lighting control system. The current system is 18 years old. It is unsupported and outdated. We are not able to get contractors to come in and correct the issues that it has, which basically means we've lost control of the lighting control system, meaning we can't schedule it, we can't program it, which is causing energy waste and an inability to schedule things around the way the building's used. The new system we would look to install would have remote capabilities, would allow us obviously to schedule accordingly to how the building's being used, which would result in energy savings and also improve some operational issues with when we need to work on a specific light or a certain area of the building, being able to quickly turn it off so we can work on it safely. The next is truck number 2 replacement. This is a 14-year-old F-150 that has transmission issues. Again, it's past its useful life for a park district's purposes. And with those transmission issues, we're playing a little bit of a game of at any time we'd be looking at an unplanned, unbudgeted major repair on a 14-year-old truck. The recommendation would be to replace it with a cargo van. This is because the truck 2 is currently used by the facility and trades team. A cargo van is really more appropriate for the type of work they're doing. They need something that's enclosed with a workspace and has ample storage for things of that nature, protect the elements. And last, we have a grouping of IT upgrades again. We'll move on to the recreation improvement recommendations. So the first recommendation is to replace our older of the 2 club cars, which are used for beach, taking people up and down from Lakefront Park down to the accessible landing, as well as at our special events here at Takeoff, the Mud Run, 4th of July. The unit we're looking to replace is a 10-year-old club car, and it has stalling issues. It presents some challenges and safety concerns when you're going up and down the ramp access and having stalling being a concern. Next would be community number 2, which is across the hallway here. It's our art room. We'd be looking to replace the flooring and cabinetry in that room. The flooring is carpet squares, which is not ideal for an art room operations with all the paints and oils and different clays and things like that. It gets into the difficult to clean. We'd look to replace it with a more resilient vinyl tile or something that could be easily cleaned on a daily basis. The cabinetry would also be updated to accommodate the storage needed for the programming in that space. Next, we have the unstructured play area development. That would be the top right picture on the screen. So that is the space outside of the multi-purpose wing. It's an outdoor space. It's currently a decking material with some planter beds cut into the middle of it. It's being used as an unstructured outdoor play space. And the recommendation would be to turn it into something that's a little more user-friendly for that age group. So we'd be looking to do an artificial surface with some padding to provide some protection for the users. And last, we have a recommendation for a shelter to be installed at Takeif. The map on the bottom right shows the overhead view, the rear parking lot, and the green square is the proposed location. This shelter would do a few things. It would replace the camp tent that's used every year for camp shelters. It would also provide a shelter opportunity for general park users, baseball users, really anybody that is walking the path and wants a place to rest. And then the shelter we're recommending potentially is to the left. There's a couple different options we can go with. We're showcasing one potential option is with a green roof option that helps capture stormwater and has a growing pod on the lower level of the roof. It helps to defer the amount of rain going into your ground, stormwater into this garden bed. Other options we can go with as well, but just wanted to showcase what one kind of cool thing we could potentially do. So with that, just bringing all these proposed projects together, we have a total project budget for Fund 65 of $558,000 with a rollover of $75,000, bringing to a total with a rollover of $633,000. This is in line with previous years' Fund 65 of, I believe it was $558 and $582 and $590 in the previous two fiscal years. Any questions on Fund 65 or?
Spaces.
So this would be on the back side of the building. If you're parked in the parking lot behind us, over here, I'm turned around, and you're looking at the gymnasium, and then there's that green space that kind of goes up towards the building. This is at the top of that kind of grassy hill that goes up, tucked in, and this vantage point is from a set of double doors, secure doors that lead out into this area.
Those two on the left-hand side, the two windows, those are the back of the GJK classrooms. So you actually see into the GJK classrooms from there. Near the sukkah, yeah, it's further
Oh, yeah.
up that. Yeah, you can see it right there.
Here's the gym. Here's the playground. This area is back in here.
Culture. And I don't know why.
Here's the turnaround
Yeah.
at the back corner. If you took the turnaround and turned left and went in this parking lot, there's that natural area just beyond that parking lot. There's a shed there currently. I'm not sure if that's helping visualize.
I don't know where after the parking ends, where we have to get.
Yeah, the path that then goes back towards the maintenance yard. Is that clear? If not, I can pull up Google Maps or something. Yeah, it's only proposed to be a 20 by 30 foot structure. It would really fall in a similar footprint to the way that tent looks out there. It would just be in the natural area. So we gain back parking and put it in a similar footprint, just pushed back a little bit. Not any closer to the train tracks than is currently situated.
Yeah, we've had to set that tent there for the last, 3-4 years, and we've had no issues. There's always camp staff there and things like that, so.
So this would be steel construction with the metal roof. I forget the terminology for it off the top of my head, but it'd be a metal roof, metal steel structure. There's some different stylistic options we could look into. You could do a stone veneer to match some of the other stonework around. Interestingly enough, this particular version is a little, I think it was like 10,000 more than the one that has decorative stone veneers. So we can, when we get to the point of decision time, we can bring options that fit within the proposed budget for the discuss.
And is the bottom, is that
So this is
a permeable surface or? is
that looks to me to be painted concrete because there's
Yeah.
cutouts by the footings. We have a couple options. We could do a concrete pad. We could potentially do a concrete curb with a more natural infill, like a crushed limestone or a crushed granite. We would not want to just install it over bare There's a couple options. I think concrete is what's shown here. That's probably the most longest lasting, most durable, but there's other options if we need to value engineer or desire less concrete.
You can just spray it off then after camp too, which is
That's true.
desirable.
Yes.
Because they'll do craft projects when they're there, they'll do lunch, so they could just spray it off.
What is that? Why is it necessary?
It would be an addition. So obviously we're adding 2 additional classrooms too for longer days. The playground's actually pretty busy year, other than the winter, pretty much all day because we're sharing with GJK, ELC, camp, enrichments. So we're looking for some extra overflow space with the goal of it being unstructured with some smaller pieces of equipment. So it wouldn't have any playground type of equipment. It would just be maybe some really low climbers and things like that. So we've seen them in some other park districts who've installed recently, and they look really great, and they give us just way more opportunity for kids to get outside and rather than being inside.
You could put like where the cutouts for the garden, where it used to be little gardens, you could put sand tables and water tables and things like that in that area too.
And there's also a lot better shade in that area with the building. So it's nice for some of the younger kids as well. So that 'cause the playground, as we know, can get a little hot and we had to add those shade structures, but that's got much better shade with the building.
I definitely think the kids need that time out of the sun.
Yeah, exactly. It's safer alternative than a tent. This is permanent structure. High wind comes, it's not going to blow away. And so we just feel it's a safer.
That would go up before camp started.
But we could potentially have that done before camp started. We'd start the process pretty quickly of engaging with the manufacturer and getting a contractor under contract, but it's not a massive project. We'd have to go through probably some permitting with the building, make sure there was no setback or MWRD issues, but aside from that, the physical work should not be a problem.
Because a lot of times,
Yeah.
back when we did Central, do group gatherings there. They have the table. Nice to have.
It really is for any kind of sport, even our athletic classes, say meet in the shelter and then go out to the field.
And
It's
special events too.
special events.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice gathering point.
Extra place. Softball.
Very good idea. We trade in our old car, that old golf cart. That person.
We listed on Gov Deals typically. That's an auction site that people are familiar with and buy surplus inventory. Had good success getting good money for trucks that are in really bad shape, and so that's where we sell it. It's the best process to go through to get good money for it. Okay. Anything else on this slide or advance? All right, we'll move on to Fund 68 and Fund 69. Again, Fund 68 is the new referendum project fund. Fund 69 is the one that we're all familiar with, the Master Plan Capital Fund. So all the projects that are presented in this section, the board is familiar with through the comp plan process, referendum process, as well as the November committee meeting where the 4-year capital improvement plan was presented. All the numbers tie back to that 4-year capital improvement plan presentation, and the groupings of projects are all the same that they've been throughout this process. Quick recap on this year's Fund 69 projects. We did central tennis courts, west tennis courts. The gas kiln was finally installed, is up and running and being used by programming. The sensory room, if you saw the big giant pallet of stuff in the lobby, the final elements just got delivered today. We're hoping to have that sensory room wrapped up here in the near future. We also did ball field restoration work at Watts in Berlin to improve some field aesthetics and drainage issues at those locations. So Fund 68, I'm not going to go through each project like the slide deck before because we've had so many discussions about them. But just to really quick show Fund 68, how we're breaking down the table for costs. In the left column, we have the project name. Then next we have the A&E budget is encompassing both the design work, the design proposals that we have before the board tonight, as well as geotechnical services, surveys, material testings, and other soft costs. So it's covering really anything that's outside of the hard construction costs or construction management fees in the case of the maintenance center and beach. Construction costs are meant to capture really the big chunk, your labor, your materials, and your construction management fees. And then the one just really want to take a minute to talk more specifically about is contingency. So we are recommending carrying a 10% contingency on our projects. I want to be very clear about what we are intending contingency to be and not to be. Contingency is meant to be an amount of money you carry to cover unforeseen, unplanned, unbudgeted costs that come up in the course of a project. Think about things like having to do massive soil remediation or stormwater detention, something that you didn't know when you were budgeting the project. We want to have that money available in case something were to come up. The goal of any contingency budget is to not use it or use very little of it and then roll that back into fund balances at the end of a project. What contingency is not meant to be used for is adding bells and whistles, scope creep, or adding new elements in. So just want to be very clear about what we're recommending that budget and what we're recommending it being used for and not used for. One of the concerns about not carrying an adequate contingency fund is if we do run into any of those major types of issues, we run into a situation where we would have to come back for a budget appropriation ordinance because we didn't have enough money set aside for that work. Aside from that, just breaking it down again, we have our A&E budget, our construction, and our contingency for the Fund 68 referendum projects of the greenhouse, the maintenance center and ball field, beach phase 1 and 2, and beach playground. That brings us to a total budget of 10.4 million with 833,000 being contingency. A couple quick things to clarify. Maintenance center and ball field have been combined into a single line item for the purposes of this presentation and because they're being tackled as a single project, but the numbers tie back to the 4-year capital improvement plan that was presented in November. And then obviously with beach phases 1 and 2 in the playground, we're not intending for construction to take place until next year. Therefore, there's no construction or contingency budget assigned.
So it would seem on the contingency, which I like that concept, but in addition to having the funds in the unlikely event that you did get a cost overrun or unplanned, but it seems it would also help you complete it on time, as opposed to saying we're out of funds, we have to go figure out where it's coming from.
Well, I think if we ran into a situation where we had to go to a budget appropriations ordinance, it would absolutely speed up that process, or in that case, it would slow it down. But yes, yes, it would speed up the process of addressing those issues if they were to arise. Again, surely hoping they do not, but want to be prepared if they do.
Thanks.
$10.5 million, and knowing that we have the 47, doesn't seem likely that we're gonna get everything we planned for in the referendum. So it is a little scary to see, just to not see any of the construction in there, at least a ballpark.
I'm sorry, maybe I should have made 100% clear. This is what's proposed for this fiscal year.
Yeah.
We have the other project elements, the construction for this in the full 4-year capital improvement plan. So this is just this year's projects. Additionally, the contingency budget is, if we had to use it, would come out of our existing fund balances, not out of the referendum fund balances. Again, the goal being not to go over, but all our referendum projects for this year and adding in the other ones in subsequent years, total up to that 14.7 for construction A&E. The contingency would be a separate 10% if needed.
That was going to be my question because I know we have to spend the 14.7 million only on the referendum projects. And I was thinking about, well, if it goes back to fund balance, then it's not used properly. You're saying that there's current fund balance that can be allocated for contingency. Where does that money come from?
So John might be more.
Like where?
So we're projecting to have about 6 million in Fund 69 at the end of this upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, but
And-
this says Fund 68, so is that the transfer then? Or like, I'm confused how you.
We wouldn't necessarily transfer it into 68 when we want to keep 68 solely just bond activities. So we would just pay those expenditures out of 69.
Okay,
for-
so this isn't just Fund 68.
These are all sub funds for financial reporting purposes. These are all rolled up into an individual capital project fund. So we have that leeway to determine what pool of money we're going to pay an invoice from.
Okay. Thanks.
We just wanted to show,
Fund 60.
Bond proceeds, correct. In reality, we'd probably want to spend up those bond proceeds. To Carol's point, we want to use those up first. And even if it is contingency related, if it's still related to that project, we'll be able to spend from the bond proceeds.
Basically, you'd rather pull the contingency budget from the bond proceeds and reimburse it from another fund.
Pretty much, yeah. You
Okay. And so on year 2 or 3, whatever, when we're spending the last of it, the contingency would have to come from another.
correct. So potentially a project that was earmarked for bond proceeds would just be paid out of Fund 69.
Okay, but okay. Do we have written down somewhere that there's a 10% contingency out of Fund 69 in the next year's budget? Or we'll just worry about that next year?
Yeah, we could factor that into our upcoming budget, but certainly the fund balance is anticipated to be there.
Have enough. Okay.
And I think one other thing clarifies any money that would be spent out of the contingency budget would come before the board for full transparency and discussion.
probably this, if it was something during construction and we needed to do it, it was under 30,000, I would authorize it. And then we would give the board a list of any contingency items that were spent for full transparency, but we would not come for approval. We would just, unless it's over 30,000.
Moving on to Fund 69, again, very similar layout. Fund 69, non-referendum capital projects, West Park. Now that we received word of the $600,000 grant, we know we're doing full scope, so budgets have been adjusted accordingly. Shelton Racket Courts are budgeted for this year, as was presented in the 4-year capital improvement plan, knowing that we do have to have a discussion to finalize what version of racket courts we'll be putting in. And we do have Milton shown on the budget for the time being. We are presenting in February. We'll reach out to community neighbors to have a community input meeting and presentation to hopefully allow for the board to make a more informed decision about what direction to go, after which point we could keep the budget as is, reduce it based on changes from the board, or remove it if we decide to defer it any longer.
And that Milton discussion will take place at the February committee meeting. So we'll present everything and the community will be invited to attend. So you get the community input immediately.
So same budget layout for these groupings of projects, totaling 2.4 million, carrying a $200,000 contingency. Again, hoping not to spend very little or any of that contingency on these projects. I can move on to the final slide. So just combining everything to look at as a full grouping of capital projects out of 68 and 69. We have a total budget of 12.9 million with a contingency budget of about $1 million. Again, hoping not to be used or having used very little of it.
I mean, the ASA grant isn't reflected in the,
No, so this is assuming we're fronting the $600,000 and it gets reimbursed upon completion. This cost reflects the total scope, and then we get reimbursed at 600,000.
I wish we could do gap accounting for these budgets so you could see that, but yeah, okay. Anyway, then we could show the committed balance for these
Right.
things.
And just current measurement focus in governmental funds doesn't really allow for us to recognize that grant revenue ahead of time. So
Advance, or it doesn't allow you to recognize the contingency in Fund 69 for the whole referendum
correct.
in the 1 year.
It's current measurement focus.
Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, and then just to follow up for this capital discussion,
Yes.
when are we voting on this at the next meeting? When are we voting on that?
Today, we're voting on the contracts for our for
Yeah,
design services.
yes,
And then
but
these items we put
these
into our
items.
budget will be part of the budget discussion, correct?
Okay.
Yep.
And that's going to be in February?
But
February committee will be the
Yep.
patient.
Yep.
So that's going to be the first week of February.
Correct. I believe it's the 5th.
Yep. And that's probably it.
Okay, just double checking.
But if there's any questions on any of these, we're doing them because we are going to commit to the design services today.
Yeah, we discussed that
Yep.
last month.
Yep.
Which I realized not all of the board members were present.
Yes, they all received
but we all
everything though.
received
Yeah.
everything. Yep.
So if they have any questions.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay, with that, I'm going to move forward then with the action items for the evening. I entertain a motion to approve the updated purchasing and debt policy as presented.
Okay.
Any discussion?
This was discussed at committee and this a recommendation from a bond council to do this.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Boren, Commissioner Kobe, Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Spector,
Yes.
President Spain.
Yes. Yeah. I entertain a motion to approve the agreement with Hitchcock Design Group from the final design through completion in the amount of $126,900 for the design of West Park.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Commissioner Kobe, Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Spector,
Yes.
President Spain.
Yes. I entertain a motion to approve the agreements with White and Company for design services for the maintenance center and ball field in the amount of $585,000 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Boren, Commissioner Kobe, Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Spector,
Yes.
President Spain.
Yes. I entertain a motion to approve the agreement with White and Company for design services for the greenhouse in the amount of $40,000 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Boren, Commissioner Kobe,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Spector,
Yes.
President Spain.
I entertain a motion to approve the Lakefront Advisory Committee membership slate as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Commissioner Kobe,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Spector,
Yes.
President Spain.
Yes. Okay, and now we're,
There,
okay. Thanks. So Lisa, I think the next item is the discussion of a potential
We have the whistleblower. Just one.
whistleblower?
Yep.
You know what? That way.
It wasn't on the agenda, member. My apologies.
Okay, hold on.
It is. on
Let
the
me just get
agenda.
the correct
Safety,
name of it.
Safety Act.
Okay, I entertain a motion to approve the updates to the whistleblower protection policy Safety Act as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Boren?
Yes.
Commissioner Kobe?
Yep.
Commissioner Schneider?
Yes.
Commissioner Spector?
Yes.
President Spain.
Yes. Okay, now we're moving on to other business. Lisa, do you want to
Yes.
present on this?
I do, and Bobby also. He's been involved in this. We are contacted by a potential donor who wishes to remain anonymous. We would be happy to verbally tell you one-on-one the name of the donor, but do not want to put it in a public meeting per his request. We have looked at his background. He doesn't live in Glencoe, lives on just the border between Neckett and Glencoe. He would like to donate funds in honor of a hockey player at Watts and a former employee for 7 years, a rank employee who passed away suddenly in 2024. Want to give a little bit more details on what he presented and talked about?
So he approached us about putting a plaque on the studio rink with the name in honor of the Deuce, which I'll get to in a few moments. Staff also had an alternative idea that we could also present is renaming the Zamboni, as the individual used to drive the Zamboni, and it's also something that might fit a little bit with the name, the Deuce. The donor, when we talked to him, he knows that we told him it was going to be a six-figure donation for something, putting a name on. He's not looking to put anybody's name or his name on it. He just wants to put, because in hockey, that this person's nickname was the Deuce, which I can talk to what that means. We're thinking it's probably going to be in the $200,000 range for a donation. We also touched base with the Weinberg family just to see what their feelings were. Immediately, Jack figured out who the person was they were talking about, was over the moon that somebody would be interested in doing that on the studio rinks. So we also mentioned the Zamboni idea, and he thought that was great. So the Weinbergs are in favor of it. The name the Deuce, just so you know, it's a hockey term. There's also another meaning to it. Basically, there's a couple of meanings. It could be means 2 goals. A player who scores 2 goals puts up a deuce. Also relates to earning 2 points in the standings for winning a league game, or a jersey number. So deuce might be used as a slang for the number 2, either the player's jersey or their stats. It also links back to the 17th century, a way of expressing surprise, confusion, frustration, similar to saying what in the earth or what the heck. You may have heard what the deuce. So we did check to make sure that it wasn't offensive, but it's really related to that hockey. We did also look into both individuals with some Google searches, make sure that there's nothing pops up in news, and obviously that came back good. You can never guarantee in the future, but it seems like a well-intentioned donation, anonymous, for an individual who's very passionate and very heavily involved in Watson at Weinberg.
We, just before we continue negotiations, we wanted to make sure the board was open to this possibility and the name that he is suggesting. So the Deuce. And supposedly they knew right away who it was, which if you're involved in hockey, they know who the individual is, so. That's why I bring it to you.
So Deuce, which doesn't seem. I get it, that was his nickname. That being said, I feel
Kind of feel like it's a hockey rink or like a Zamboni, whatever. Maybe I wouldn't put it in an elementary school. Well, I mean,
kindergartners.
I know they,
So, I
yeah,
mean, it's going to be. It's
Yeah.
going to be used.
I
in
know,
a-
but it's
yeah,
like a
I-
fun,
It's going to
it just strikes
be in
me.
honor. The plaque is going to be in honor of the Deuce. It's not going to be necessarily calling the rink the Deuce.
We're not going to
It's-
call
yeah.
it we're not putting in
Yeah.
publications, Deuce the studio rink. It's still the studio rink. We made that very clear. So it's a plaque in honor of, and it'll hang in the studio rink.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plaque that says this rank is in honor of the Deuce,
Correct.
and that's the only refer. Deuce.
No. That is
That,
one option.
that is an
You could-
option.
So it's either do the Zamboni or do the plaque.
Pardon me?
It's either name the Zamboni
Yeah,
or
we didn't
put
even
the
give
plaque.
them that option.
Yeah.
Staff came up with that option because that would, we do need a new Zamboni.
You
and
need
that
a new
would-
Zamboni, and that's something that somebody might be willing to.
Because it's nice playing card, like a tennis game.
That's true.
People also ask, and you did it yourself.
Yeah.
I personally think I would prefer.
No, you're giving your opinion. That's your opinion and
At a. Like,
For nickname?
it's John Doe or something like that, people understand it's a reference name as opposed to what I'm not even gonna say. Is.
Leaning in favor with you.
And
And I only say that because if you go there and you don't know who the person is, if you go there and it says in honor of the Deuce and you're like, I don't know who that is, then yeah, obviously, I don't know. I'm kind
I mean,
of
could
leaning
anything
in
maybe
favor
like
of you.
Glencoe, like something.
But I will say also at the same time, if we're gonna get a Zamboni out of it and we're gonna name the Zamboni, I personally care what the Zamboni's name is and how many people are really gonna ever hear that. I don't know.
Probably have to put a name on the side of it, though, so we would.
That's fine. I
Yeah.
don't care.
let's put
Yeah.
Let-
Deuce on it. So more people would see the, like,
That's fine. They might think it's a brand name. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like it's in a setting where it's okay to just smirk about something. I don't know. It just.
Yeah, I don't,
Wimbledon has no problem saying deuce. I mean, they don't go
But
to the,
Wimbledon says deuce. They're not calling it. Deuce is a definition of. It's an actual definition name. You call a Zamboni deuce, and just make sure we don't paint it brown. You're asking.
I think that would be even funnier.
asking
It is our second Zamboni, so
yeah.
it would be our second Zamboni.
I don't know. I think.
I'm in favor of it. I'm with you on that sentiment of I just wish it was a different name.
That's what he was known for. We could go back and say, can we put
Why was he called
John?
That was his position in hockey,
Deuce? Yeah.
too.
position hockey?
The two.
I think that
yeah, but if you ask a hockey player, they're automatically gonna know that.
They knew exactly who he
Yeah.
was.
He played there for 30 years.
Yeah, that's gonna say in honor of, so he doesn't want his real name on it.
No, he wanted it to say the Deuce, in honor of the Deuce. And again, we didn't bring the
I don't
Zamboni
see any
idea.
reference to Deuce.
Does he wanna show like a little picture of him? But, or no?
No, no. If you use a language model, you can relate it to hockey, it tells you.
Be way worse.
Yeah, it's like a little giggle.
That's why we brought it to you.
Yeah.
I don't. We had last name. That's so much better than just because at least people understand it's referring to. And it's a little bit like words have meaning and them in this room. Not want some parent to be like, my kid came home and was talking about. I just the odds are it's going to be 1 in a million. Like Booth Cottage, we had one person complain about Booth Cottage, but it's still.
We had one person complain about Duke Park too.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone that takes a name that they don't like. How dare you name it a park after a dog? Yeah.
If your
You know,
nickname is JD, you're probably not going to have a comment on it. Your nickname is Deuce. I would just love to see.
Yeah, I'm fine with the plaque thing. And if will the Zamboni say in honor of the Deuce, or will it just be called the Deuce? And that's
We haven't brought it to the donor yet, but it would likely say, call it the Deuce.
because that
Yeah.
would look weird if you said in honor of one side and then. I don't know. I'm fine with it. I just think I agree with you, but I just, yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
actually-
so, no, I'm
I'm
like,
myself Zamboni called. I think it's in honor. I don't think that's our point. I just don't. Sorry, guys. You guys can, with the beauty is that you can have a vote 5. I don't think it's in our brand to have anything called the Deuce. As John Deuce, McDuffins, whatever. I just don't think it's in our brand to have that.
Okay, are you willing to like say no to $200,000 though, based on that?
I personally think that we can work with them to name the Deuce.
so you're fine with if there's a plaque that says in honor of John Deuce Smith.
Fine.
John the Deuce Smith.
Not a problem with that. Because
John
at least
the
we're-
Deuce.
It has to say the
The
Deuce.
Deuce, okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with John the Deuce Smith. I do not want a Zamboni that says the Deuce on it. I really think
Would you?
Would a small plaque that not that many people look at bother you though? I feel like
No, that
the
wouldn't
kids
bother me
might
at all.
snicker, but like,
A plaque that says in honor of the Deuce or whatever, that wouldn't bother me at all. The Zamboni
think
driving
that-
around saying the Deuce does bother me, but yeah, a
I
plaque,
don't think I have a problem with plaque. I
plaque
think if
doesn't
you're gonna
matter
make
what.
make it more prominent. I put, and I don't understand why the donor would have a. I don't see why the donor would be like have to just say the Deuce. I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah, there's some complexity around the naming, the sensitivity to the family. So there's just, again, we've had initial conversations.
This donor isn't family with the person that's paying for it.
No, he's not.
He is not.
No, he skated at Watts for years. And this person skated at Watts for years and he was well known in the community. And he just felt like he wanted to get it because he died young and suddenly he wanted to give back somehow to remember him. And that was his just pure
So
motivation.
that, there's where I can understand the sensitivity
was
to
that?
the
Yeah.
family.
And then we would ask the family. The family would be, of course, consulted
Right.
first. He would call them or we would.
Yeah.
We haven't even approached the family because we didn't want to put it out there. If it's not, all of a sudden the board says no, we didn't want to even broach, well, why not? Then it becomes a bigger issue. The family has not been brought into this discussion at all,
If
but
it-
they would be prior to any naming.
If it's a plaque, I don't really personally care if it has the full name or the nickname.
On either the Zamboni, I'm just getting this for the minutes, either the Zamboni or the rink, either one
I prefer the plaque if we're gonna just use,
on the rink.
yeah, wherever the
Okay.
plaque's gonna go. I don't.
Okay, studio rink.
What do you think?
I don't have a problem. It's such a common word used in our parks where we have tennis courts. Deuce comes up all the time. My daughter played hockey for 4 years at New Trier. You know, I don't know how many hundreds of deuces she was involved in. So I don't see a problem with that. I guess in terms of sensitivity with the Zamboni, if you could somehow come up with a phrasing like in honor of the hockey player, the deuce or something, and then it's defined as a person. But I don't have the same sensitivity other people do. It's a commonly used word in our parks and on our sports teams in high school here. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with the word. But again, if you can't use a name, but you could somehow tie in the Deuce, a hockey player named the Deuce or something like that, called the Deuce, then it's personalized. It's somebody, and he was a hockey player. He played on this ice,
It's a good
whatever.
idea.
Or do we want to say like in memory of, or, you know, because that.
Yeah,
We could-
memory
that-
might be
okay.
better.
Because then they know it's somebody who,
Yeah,
That's that's even better.
it is.
I like that saying in memory of a dedicated Glencoe hockey player, the Deuce, or something to tie it back to this rink.
Yeah.
Or Watts hockey player or something like that.
What's the hockey player from Glencoe?
Yeah. He was from.
He skated
right?
here. He lived in a surrounding town.
Oh, he skated here.
Skated here for.
Because I
30
think if you
years.
lived here, you could say it in memory of Glencoe's hockey player, the Deuce. But I don't know.
He-
But I don't think you could use.
Maybe
his name.
Watts
He-
or Weinberg hockey. I don't know. We'll think
Yeah.
of it.
I don't know if he ever lived in Glencoe. Definitely skating for 30 years here.
But we're saying a dedicated Glencoe hockey player. He still was in
Yeah.
Glencoe hockey, playing hockey. I don't know.
Yeah.
We could think about it.
Yeah,
Aaron's,
I like-
Aaron's
I
already
like that.
noodling, I could tell.
You've got a great idea already.
Sure.
Aaron, you live a marketing life.
You're not crazy. That's why you have the hard job.
The way I hear to do, 14 and 15-year-old at home.
I've never said that word.
Neither,
God.
ever. Nobody thinks mine either. It was Bobby's.
Great.
first.
Yes.
The phrase.
But to Bart's point,
Yeah, of course.
the
it is.
tennis and hockey references are
Yeah.
there.
My kids are in their 20s and 30s. No, I'm probably not hearing what you're hearing.
It's a
I would never put it in
I
our
wouldn't name it, we would put it
publications.
aside. We just wouldn't, and we put things like Kiwi.
Right.
But I guarantee the flight or the war pilots had their little nicknames on there,
Yeah.
and I bet you those weren't all just okay.
We don't-
They
we
were
don't-
just, I know you didn't more, but that's was tradition.
I don't know. I think I think that maybe if you just have the Deuce with no context on a Zamboni, you could get a lot of jokes about it, but
Mhm.
which may not be our brand.
It's fine.
But the plaque, or if you say it in memory of
Yeah.
the Deuce or
Right.
whatever, then that implies you're talking about a person. And maybe if you're in the context of hockey, people will get it. I don't know. And I think personally, I think my kids have been using potty words since they could first start talking. They were probably their first words they ran around saying. So it's like, There's worse ones.
There's definitely worse ones.
Yeah.
So
If I'm hearing correctly, everybody is in favor, maybe not Michael, in memory of the Deuce.
Yeah.
To be on a plaque on the studio rink or on a plaque on the Zamboni, or just the studio rink.
We haven't-
We haven't brought up the Zamboni to the donors, so you could say no, he brought up the studio rink. If you say, "No, just put it on the studio rink where no, yet, but I mean. So, and they're expensive. Art?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it in both places. I like the idea of personalizing somehow where the Deuce was a hockey player. He was our hockey player, or he was our beloved hockey player, or something like that. And then it's clearly a person, it connects to the ice. He played here. I think it's really important that he played on the ice in Glencoe that this rink is named after. So I think if you
Okay.
can personalize it like you do on a lot of the benches in the park.
Oh, like a sentence or two about his history or tie back to the ring.
In memory of the hockey player, the Deuce, and we'll think of what else to put in. Okay. Okay. And try to tie in 30 years.
Or
something.
even in memory of the Deuce and then,
Hockey player for
below.
over 30 years
yeah, or something like
at
that.
Watts or something. Okay.
it is not going to be rink. It's
No.
not going to be the Deuce rink.
No.
It's still on the studio.
Yep.
Like.
I wonder if that would
It's
bring
not a
in
noun.
people.
I said it's not a noun.
But this, memory of the Deuce, a dedicated hockey player at Watts or Weinberg, whatever, for
Yeah.
30 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, Jordan? Yep. Good, everybody's good? Okay, got that? Yeah, at Watts or Glencoe or something. Yeah, at Watts. Yep. Okay,
Can you say Watts now that it's Weinberg? You can't.
I don't know, we can't. So at Weinberg or
Dedicated.
Glencoe or something like that. Yeah, dedicated Glencoe hockey player. I like that. So a dedicated Glencoe hockey player. Fun.
That's close.
I like it.
You're gonna piss off some-
You don't want to piss off anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. The next one, I'm going to skip because we have a new one that just came up. If we're done with that, everybody good on that one? Okay, we'll continue to see what we can do on making that donation a reality. I put it on your table. We need to, this is the first reading, and then we will bring it back for approval, probably put it in consent agenda items because it's been talked to about a lot. Shannon, we submitted approval for Shannon Stevens to attend the AOAP annual conference. And when we asked for approval, it was way back in October, before the hotel costs were really published. It turns out the conference hotel and other hotels in the vicinity of the conference exceeded the GSA amount. Per our policy, we'd come back and ask for permission to allow that. But you can see other amounts were lowered, flights were lowered. And per diem was lowered because meals were included. So we're asking for reapproval to advance the January board meeting approval of Shannon Stevens for the AOAP annual conference expenses not to exceed a total of $2,382.05. Boom.
Was it
It was $2,119.
say 500? In case there's any.
We can, if you're fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2,500. So I will change that and put that
In
2,500.
case she needs to take an Uber.
That's why I did up the thing. I am a little worried about that because you have to go from Tampa to, St. Pete.
Government Services Administration, so that's what the benchmark is for federal employees. They really just set the standards for governmental travel. They set the ranges. It's done based on geography, so you could look up like this county in Florida, or for our conference, we look up what it is for Chicago. And that's what our level and expense kind of did by the GSA rates. If we are ever to exceed those rates, we do need to come to the board for your approval.
Nope, same days, 4 days, 4 days.
Understand why per diem at 80 per day is one rate and per day is another.
Because there was some food included, so we take those meals out.
So it's not really. Good, well, look,
Okay,
I think this is important for her, development, and 300.
won't kill us. Great. If it's okay with you, I'll just put this under a consent agenda item in January. So it'll be perfect. Okay, great. Thank you. Get her all booked on that.
Okay.
All right.
Then the next item is the merit race.
Yep. And so we're going to excuse Kyle and Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good on.
Okay, turn it over to John.
All right, thank you, Lisa. So hopefully everybody,
What? We do, because it's just, if you're uncomfortable having her here, it's nothing. He takes all the notes. It's all notes, yeah. We just, why keep them around for
Try
a
to get
discussion? And she has to take down, so we don't send her home. But if you're okay with that, she can say.
as in years past, we're bringing to the board the merit pool memo. This year, we are recommending a 4% increase in the merit pool. We did, as we have done in the past, reached out to several other peer districts to see where they would be landing on their merit increases for this year. Most of them were, or all of them were between 3 and 5%, with most landing right around that 4%. Also included from the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, some of their most recent data as of 9/30 showing that compensation of state and local government employees has increased an average of 4.7 over the past 12 months. And as a reminder, we are also in the midst of completing an updated compensation study. So we'll plan on making any necessary adjustments that come out of that study at the time that is complete. But as we're evaluating the ranges that we have as part of that new compensation study, we'll measure current salaries plus this increase against any new ranges. So hopefully we'll be in range for most of them, but if we do wind up having to make adjustments based on that compensation study, we will be proposing those adjustments once that study is complete and we've reviewed the information.
And that would not take place until the board approved the salary range, so we'd have the whole discussion on that. So.
Correct.
Can you give me what were levy increases again?
3.4.
So it is 3.4. Okay.
So that's the cap on the old property. There's potential for it to exceed that based on new property. Hoover.
Do you have any concerns that one of our biggest budget items growing faster than our levy?
No, I think we've certainly a consideration and something that we need to be cognizant of. But as we are moving toward placing less and less reliance on our levy, and we're getting to 40%, hopefully even below that. Our staff is doing an outstanding job, particularly in the rec programming area. We're coming up with these significant capital transfers on an annual basis that are just becoming routine. And it really is on account of what the folks are doing with the camps, and Finish Strong Athletics this year is going to be a huge win for us from a financial perspective and things like that. It's definitely a consideration. And to your point, 4% versus 3.4%, that 3.4% is old property. So it's likely it's going to be a little more than that because we're going to capture any new property. Hopefully we would push a little more to that 4% and be on an even basis with where the levy is. But again, at the same time, the levy is not our sole source of revenue, and I don't think should really drive entirely these
50% of our
decisions.
budget is our fees and charges, so that's a big part of it.
Going up.
They're going up by, it depends, we don't say it's blanket, not all of them are going up equally. Some go up a little more based on the market, what the market can bear.
I understand your point, and I'm not saying I'm not for the 4%. I just think that I guess we're still responding to COVID and inflation in the market with this, but it's not sustainable to do 4% every year. And I feel like we're getting to a point where we're going to still see we might even see under 3% growth in the levy the following year. I know I'd be really curious to hear about the totals and sign up for the spring programming, because I think a lot of people might be I don't know, I'm curious if people are pulling back because it's our tight, you know? So I guess I'm just hesitant because everything compounds, right? Like a 4% affects the next year's budget. This because a 3% increase or 3.5% increase next year on top of a 4% base, it expands. And I just don't think we can keep doing this.
I also am worried that if we don't keep up with our area, our districts and other government bodies, if you look at the chart for 2024, the majority of them are doing 4 or 5%. There's only one district that's doing 3%, and that's Highland Park. If we don't keep up with our neighbors, we're not going to be able to retain quality staff. If they can go next door and get more than we're able to play at Glencoe, that hurts our chances of providing those exceptional programs.
Also, just bear in mind, sorry. So minimum wage just went up to 7.1%. So there is, we've talked about it before, that compression too. So regardless of what this merit discussion is, there's going to be compression with those seasonal staff or anyone who's on that. It's now gone up to $15. This is the last year of it, but that has caused some compression as we've talked multiple times. So just bear that in mind that
It's
it
not
is
going up anymore. I thought
It's-
it was.
This is the final.
This is the final year of it. Stops at 15.
What percentage of our staff receives health benefits?
Yeah, we have 50 full-time employees, so they're all eligible for health benefits. Seasonals obviously skew the numbers, but when you factor in our permanent part-times, we're probably at a total of 110 to 115.
Have those premiums that they pay gone up?
We increased it on the PPO plans that we offer. We held the HMO flat, mainly because we're trying to get as many folks into the HMO because it is a more cost-effective
Right.
option for the district.
And would you say a good percentage of them are in the HMO versus PPO? Or
Yes, the individuals for sure. I was looking at that actually this past payroll because all the new deductions took effect this year. A lot are utilizing the HMO, and the insurance buyout has been a huge success for us. So that's where we're paying them. I believe the individual buyout is around $2,000 now for calendar year 25, whereas if that employee was a PPO enrollee, we'd be paying about $15,000 for that employee. Families is even more significant. We have, I believe, 2 or 3 families taking a $5,500 buyout, whereas the PPO insurance for a family is about $35,000.
It's fair to say that majority of our staff is not going to pay more in health insurance. This 4% would be more money for them, which is I'm in favor of. Okay, I'm just
That's
curious.
fair, yes.
Everything, I know my premiums at work skyrocketed. My merit, I'm making less money this year with a merit increase of more than 4%. So just curious on that. Thanks.
Thankful for Carol's comment because I'm always the Grinch every year, Carol. I think it's different though if we're talking about 4% on someone making 30,000 and then 4% on a very high paying salary. I think without that salary study coming in, it's really hard to say. I hear what you're saying and I agree. If you add 4% up every year, we did 5 a lot. So where do you end up? And I'm not concerned about the people making 30,000. I think those are the people that we would easily, especially with the minimum wage. So I don't know if there's a way to do that. Where I know you guys have a pool on it, but it costs way more for salaries up here. The people you're probably more.
Are you talking
Listen,
about?
there was only 1 year of 5%. 2021, we did 2.3, 2022, 5%. Last year, 4.5, and then 4. Before that was always 3. So we haven't always, we did 5 1 year.
But and if you look at our surrounding, we were always usually at the top of them. So compared to them, they may be catching up to us. We're not looking at their salaries across. So it's not a lot of information that
We actually there's a chart of all the other districts around us, and we are actually in line, if not less.
But those are the raises. We don't know what the raises are.
Right.
Well,
from.
those are the percentage of,
right, but we don't know what
They're their base salary.
yeah.
But what's
Gotcha.
interesting about
Gotcha.
is HP goes up. Arguably, HP was the lowest last year. Northbrook and Wilmette go down. Everyone else stays the same. It's never an easy conversation. Very interesting is to plot it's probably just too much data to do, but it'd be interesting to plot time member attrition against 2022, 2023, and 2021, like to see if there really is a correlation between attrition and merit. I don't know if we've done that analysis. Also go out there and say, I think 4% is high, given the fact that you're in private, I'm in private.
Yeah.
We have not done 4% for like years. We're gonna have our best year ever as our company. We're gonna be at like 3.
Yeah, that's our best. We
But
had an amazing year, 3.5.
But you can't compare private to
Right.
public.
I-
because
I'm-
We don't
I'm
have a
private, I
lot
got
of the other
6%.
benefits.
But what other, but you mean,
I'm not, 4 is not out of the realm of possibilities. I'm just commenting on where I think we are.
Yeah, what I would say to your comment on trying to figure out, just looking at the data, is the percentage increase having impacting attrition? We know it is because we talk to them on a daily basis and they want to feel, it's more about feeling valued too. And
I'm going to push back on that. There are 100 other ways to feel valued rather than salary. Every HR study will come out there and tell you salary is a minor.
it's,
Every one of them.
and you know, I respect that too, but we do hear from our employees that it's very demotivating if I'm getting an increase that just isn't keeping up with where my expenses are going. There's a lot to balance, and I agree.
And I respect that. And you're not wrong that it's motivating, but there are things. I don't get a free gym membership salary. I don't get a free gym membership. Your healthcare is a lot more affordable than my healthcare. I don't have a pension, but your full-time workers have pensions.
Between tier 1 and tier 2, there's a fair argument that you can make with tier 2 that I would probably rather a 401k match.
100% agree on that.
I guarantee you.
We-
And
Nope.
nothing stops you from missing. And so it's, we can't compare apples. I do think comparing us to other park districts is not unreasonable. And so I don't think it's 4% is off, probably closer to 3.5.
I just don't think we can do 4% every year. So at some point, we're going to have to tone this down.
I mean,
Because 1 year, maybe we can afford it, but if we keep it up, I mean, I really just don't think our revenue growth is going to keep up over time.
The dates don't seem to line up on the first page and the second page. It says 2024, 4% proposal, but then the second page says proposed 2025 for everybody else.
Yeah,
so that, take away the word proposed.
it was
under
what we did.
Oh, that was, so
Yeah, the
last
first
year.
page is just our district and the second page is
Okay.
all the other districts.
Okay. So we're looking at the proposed 2025. Yeah, it's, with one exception, it's 4% or higher. The one thing is, and we've got a lot of people who Stephanie was saying are lower income, people working in the children's circle and all of that. And I hear the comments about overall inflation, but food inflation has been terrible. And if you're low income, you don't have much discretionary income, and food is becoming a bigger and bigger number. And it was an election issue. I think there's probably lower income people who are going 4%. I still can't buy the food I used to buy before. I got to go cheaper. So I would be uncomfortable doing anything less than, we're just looking at this year. We're not saying this year is the projection for all the future years. To me, 4% sounds good. Plus, it's give staff marching orders to, we want to have average costs here every year compared to everybody else, but we want to stay number one. And you just can't, over time, you can't do that.
The economy,
Also
the
speak-
economy is,
Economy
I
and the
mean,
cost of living.
economics in general.
So have our expenses. So all of our expenses.
That's true.
And again, we're responsible to taxpayers. So
Right.
that's why it's a harder decision. We're not a corporation. But it's a big difference. And again, 4% on a high salary is a lot. So, all right, keep going in that direction. I agree. We were okay with 3 for a long time. And our expenses have gone way up. We're not getting the interest either.
Can you tier it out based on salary?
They can do it. We give them a 4% pool, and they don't micromanage that, right?
Got it.
So they can do what they.
And I guess 4% means somebody might get a 5% raise and somebody might get.
That would be where my bigger
There is another way
issue would be.
to do this, and we've started doing this in my office. I'm not saying I like it, but being creative there are ways. Let's say your payroll. Say you get. What's that? 40,000.
Yeah, you got it.
25,000, but you bump people's 1,000 of it. What that does is it stops the on salary itself. So gives people the money and gives them optionality for the further years. Not saying to do this. I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying I don't like it, but I'm saying it gives you an option where, hey, look, we'll give you say we'll give you a 3% increase in salary, and additional 1% without increasing salary. And
We'll say we gotta, I think when we did the 5% raise and the 4.5% raise, we had a lot of angry teachers. They were expecting a lot more. So for us managing that expectations, they're expecting like 3% to them. It seems very low. Yeah.
nutrition is.
Yeah.
One of the challenges you have as well, it showed us how incredibly happy people are. On the surveys that you now do annually, everyone comes back and says, I love my job. This is a great place to work. We get 90+ satisfaction on 4%. And then when it comes time for merit, oh my God, they're so unhappy because they only get 4%.
That
So,
that stat
data-
was actually on our participants and programs
Yeah.
that we gave you.
Well, yeah,
That was our people taking our programs.
No.
you're saying the working at the
Talking
Glencoe
about
Park
our
session.
Internal customer, on the internal
I think we
surveys.
asked, if we asked the question of pay, that would be a totally
But
different.
You'll get that
goes
anyway.
That goes back to what I just told John. Your happiness and your satisfaction at work is a culmination of both factors here. And when we have the merit discussion, we can't just say people are going to be happy with 4% or 5% or 6% or 7%. More than that. And it's hard for me to hear that on our internal employee survey, how happy our employees are throughout the year. We ask them the question, would you recommend working at the Park District? You know, that question's on there. All these yeses. Then we talk about merit. Or miserable.
Because we're keeping competitive with other park districts in the area. If we went down and they go to Highland Park and work at their pool or their beach and they get 50 cents to a dollar more, they're going to be just as happy there because they get the same benefits over there.
Yeah, but we already raised, we did that whole salary study and we raised up the teacher salaries to meet expectations. Already should be there because we did that exercise, invested that money and just put in another perk of paying for half of their childcare not there, which is a whole nother expense to take on.
And the teachers' salaries, we adjusted based on other teachers because other park districts don't have
Hmm.
childcare.
Being there lives. Right? It used to be sales off left and right. Pay more money. Again, I don't think 4% is drastically out of the.
That's what the school district's giving. They're giving 4.5%. They're actually giving, that's proposed. They're giving more. The village is giving 3.5. But every park district is giving at least 4%, except for Wilmette.
And so let me ask you, so you said the survey or the study you're doing on salaries, that's going to give you what salaries are per positions for districts.
Yeah,
Why would we
Correct.
have that?
Yeah.
Like,
likely hopefully by the end of the fiscal year,
that's not somebody.
end of February, we're hoping. They've been aligned with our fiscal year, so March 1.
I think we're probably stuck between 3 and 4. I'm speaking for, that's where we're at. And just what that sets us up for in the future and why we away from the 3, given all the information we've gotten this year and up salaries. Without more information, it's hard to have a further. We don't get that information.
I would like to see 2022 and 2020. And I'd like to see reminder of the survey. Not saying 4%. I do think it's important that we look at this data and tell the taxpayers, hey, our budget, what we're doing.
What about, this is really kind of fine pointing, but even if it's like 3.75,
Yeah.
like that's the expectation that we can ratchet down a little bit from,
Yeah.
from the 4.
Good point.
So it's more gradual. It's not a shock to go from maybe 4 to 3.75 to 3.5 and then evaluate the market from there. Because probably the expectation's high. How do you guys feel about that? So we can at least not set the expectation that it will always be at the higher level.
I would say, and so I was working in the 1970s and 80s when inflation was really high, and no one would be having a conversation like this without the inflation rate column there, because inflation was much higher in 22 and 23. So the real rate of increase in compensation is insignificant. And if I recall correctly, 2022, the inflation rate was over 5%. So a 5% increase was negative. People
Yeah, it was.
took home less. Maybe people around the table who were working felt they got an even worse deal, but I can't I can't vote for something that is below the rate of inflation. And I think you need to pay something, particularly if you want to keep the high ratings we have, you better pay the surrounding communities. But I would like to see the inflation rate. If we're going to vote on this, I'd like to see the data on the first page, but have the inflation rate next to it and then show us what was the real growth. You know, yeah, I'd like to see it for the whole column. I'd like to see it for the last 10 years.
I think, Stephanie, to your original question here, inflation rate, the inflation rate is pumped into our tax levy. We know we're at 3, bump it up for new things, you're at that 3.75. Oh, sorry, you're at, forget, the inflation rate only impacts the current levy, it does not impact new. So we know that 3.4 is what the
That's the floor.
state said.
That's the floor, 3.4.
3. So that to me is good. Charging our taxpayers 3. Common service. Because that's what. And I'd also argue that it isn't incredibly. We're lucky to have Lisa, we're lucky to have Bobby, we're lucky to have John. Should be finding efficiencies other places. As we that make us more than 5 or 4%. And maybe that's actually what, like, as it becomes efficient, is there places we've done more to merit? Like, we're about to build, is that going to cost $8 million for the maintenance center out there? Fine, does that mean that we save 1,000 on OpEx? And there you can pump some money back into give us a justification why we should go to 404, that would help.
You look at the incremental revenue, even just on FSA, right? If you brought in $750,000 that we're getting 25% of, we haven't added any additional marginal cost to that, right? Yeah.
If you put in salary or cost of business is 12% more, I don't know, because we've done 10% more revenue.
That's also where bonuses come into play. And you guys do bonus anyway. Done that every year. That is also an option where you say you're not taking on that added expense. Don't forget, every time you do that and raise it, it's cost more pay. Oh,
Pension.
pension.
Yeah.
It's incremental and you can't take that back. But if you give a bonus,
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Look, I don't think 4% is out of the realm. I think it's a really good justification of what I think that is there, whether it's through efficiencies, whether it's because it's we see attrition. I'd like to see some oomph behind it, and
to go under 4, because I think we're setting the expectation in that, and I think that you said that the surveys came back with people happy, and if they're not happy, there a difference between 3% and 4%, we would bigger.
I would,
I don't want to engineer it into the point where we have people like, oh, now I know the survey takes such a big part, I'm going to start to bash the survey until I get more money. I do think
Then the problem is then you'll think the management's doing something wrong, but really
right.
the cost, there really is, it's about,
Just working in government, it's very transparent. You know what the next town is over. So if every other park district surrounding you gets 4%, and when you get less, yet you're doing a better job, which we are,
we are.
the perception of that doesn't go down well. It's just the reality of working in government. What the next, you know what the exact same job over in the next town makes. It's all transparent.
But they're not the same. The position, whoever's in Aaron's role in Highland Park, I don't know how their salaries compare. I feel like you do it for what you think, and even if you go over there, unless you're at the base wage, right, it's all up to negotiation. You're not going to know what they're going to pay you.
More important that we're competitive in our salaries, which is why we need that conversation. That to me is more important.
Yeah, and that will show, I think it'll show that we're actually, my guess is, we'll see what it comes back as, but
I personally think if we do 3.75, if somebody leaves over the 0.25% decrease, I would like to do 3.75. And if we could put in the budget maybe a bigger bonus pool with whatever.
That's exactly.
like, that's a great.
I just like to add, I would be disappointed if we went under 4%. Again, we are, and Lisa and her staff have got us to an exceptional level of performance, and everybody is contributing there. There are efficiencies that come with that, but the thought that you want people to stay at the top level and then we're going to pay less than surrounding communities. And we've got a great finance department. I don't think 4%, and I didn't go through the numbers, but I don't think that's a stressor for the park district.
No, it's aligned with it fits within the parameters of our budget.
So I'd like to see us be, even though overall we're providing better service and satisfaction, I would like to see us below the other communities around here. And I also, again, I'll say it again, and there's a lot of different consumer price indexes, and you want to figure out which is the most appropriate, but I would like to see the past numbers and what those have been that were appropriate for our staff.
View. RA are all about 50, all dropped their raise from 2023 to 2025 by half.
That was catching up.
They were catching up, yeah.
So out there, like these things happen. Glencoe Library is at 3.2. Why is the library at 3? They're half of what they were
Well,
2023 as well.
They did
I
6
think they have a lot
earlier.
of revenue sources.
Yes.
Revenue diversity.
They're certainly more reliant on property tax levy, so that is more aligned with the 3.4. One other thing I just wanted to mention as it relates to the property tax levy, I know we talked about the 3.4 and then the potential new property. I don't want to get too far into the weeds on it, but there also is the property tax recapture, which is basically when there's appeals in prior years and bills are reduced. It basically spreads that cost. We catch up for what our taxes are reduced in a previous year. So for example, this year we're getting $92,000 in this year's levy related to property tax recapture too. So we kind of factor that in, and yeah, understanding it's not compounding, but that certainly makes up the shortfall between the 3.4 and the 4%.
1% is 30 grand.
That is correct. No, 1% is 31.
grand.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose That's a third of a basement for dumping, right? So it's not like it's big money. I hear the press, but I would like to put you guys, like to have more evidence behind that 4% rather than just saying, oh, well, our neighbors are doing.
Well, we're a smaller village to all neighbors, so I understand the aspect of Northbrook or they're larger. But I think for being as small as we are, we provide this amount more.
For resident, yeah, we do.
And I think that in order to keep that up and in order to maintain that, I think you staff and you. I mean, do I like the idea? Do I agree with everything that they're saying 100%? Yes. I don't think it is sustainable. However, and I do agree with the 4% on the fact that right now the economy is still rough. And yes, for us, it is also going to essentially get rough. I trust that you've done the due diligence on our financial health and our ability to do it. And the only thing we can hope for is the economy, all the inflation, economics, everything kind of starts getting better. I doubt it will, but we can dare to pray. But
It's gotten better.
it has. But will it continue, or is it just election backlog? Again, there's so many things that can jump around at the tweak of any kind of world event. I think at right now, if we want to continue maintaining at our current level of service and with our people,
I just think we need to be thoughtful. I understand, I'm not totally opposed to the 4%. I just want to be thoughtful about the rationale. I almost want to create a policy or guidelines about how we do the merit increase. Because in the future, we may have to drop down to 3%, and because that's what's affordable, right? And if right now we're saying in the past, we gave bigger raises because, and not more than 5, because that was the cap in our levy. At one point, because of inflation, and inflation gets down to closer to, I know it was under 3. It was probably still above 2 at some point in the 5 years prior to 2020. I don't remember exactly. But if we're saying it's tied to inflation, then now what is it really about inflation, or is it about competition, or what are the factors?
I think
So
it's
that when we
both.
do make a decision, it's easier to communicate and it's somewhat consistent versus, well, this is what the other people are doing. I'd rather have a consistent rationale and something built in to work off of, to plan for, because I don't think 4% is breaking our budget. I just don't think it's sustainable. And what if we're caught next year 3% and all of a sudden everybody's shocked and it's the same conditions in the economy. And we don't know necessarily, maybe everybody's doing 4% because they think the other people are doing 4%, and then we're trapped in a.
I think you're always going to be trapped. It's a little bit of competition. It's a little bit of inflation.
Yeah,
That's how
but
it's
we
always going to
dropped to
be.
3.75, maybe
But
everybody.
what did we do last year? We did 4.5, right? Or
4.
4.
Yeah,
Okay.
it
was proposed 4.5 and
I think sometimes it's helpful to have at least more of a strategy tied to both the levy and peers and whatever, and.
I hear
Don't you
I-
think you do that, John? Isn't that how you come with up with that?
Yeah, but I
Right,
think what you're asking
but like the
is reasonable. It's you start with a levy and you say the raises should be within 50 to 100 points of the levy collection, right?
Mm.
If we're noticing attrition is more than 10%, we should make the raises another 25 basis points.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to do that, because then people might.
Sure. Yeah,
But.
I mean,
But I think we want to have something in line with inflation, and then with allowing for one-time adjustments for like market events or something.
Yeah, I would just remind everyone that the property tax levy is about 40% though. So I don't want to,
But
Have
are
that be-
things really going up that much?
programs are growing.
Expenses.
In sustaining themselves. Other, like, is your.
The transfer is the free cash flow at the end
Right.
of the day.
We can look at these very large transfers that we've been able to move to Fund 69 over the past 3-4 years.
You guys are, that's a great story. I like it. I just.
how do you want to present it? Because we lay out all this, we lay out our accomplishments. What exactly do you want us to show you? Because we think we're showing it to you. So I guess we
would like
need
to see-
clarification.
If this, I would love to see, notice like the great start, a lot of things, the attrition. I see, I don't remember the customer, I don't remember your internal surveys, see what what our customers is saying. And I think if the argument is gonna be 50% and you, 40% taxes, what is the increase? I'd like to see want to understand every dollar in payroll, that to me, efficient or inefficient. So if it takes $1 in payroll, bring in $100,000 in fees, great. Next year, it's $1.50 to bring in 100,000 in fees.
But now you're basing everything we do on revenue. And there's some intangibles that come with no revenue that
Lisa,
are
that's-
part of
that's-
our
that's-
Nate.
That is, sorry, I'm interrupting. That is not fair. Because you guys are using the argument that done so much better with fee revenue. And then when I'm saying,
That's one,
prove it,
but that's
and you're
one
like, no,
part of
no,
it.
now we can't use it.
No, we can, but that's only one part of it. But you can't base it all on revenue because there's a lot of stuff that we do that's not revenue generating. Parks,
Maintenance.
Then-
park
then
maintenance, special events, which are huge draws in. So there's that part you have to figure it in too, because we'll never capture revenue at, but it takes really quality staff to maintain the parks the way they are that aren't generating any revenue from.
Uh,
That's some EBITDA margin or
Yeah,
some
I
sort
need
of
a point over here because. this
margin.
is-
I just,
I'm sorry, if that's the case, let's just say that is the case, which I think it is, by the way, great. Then we can't afford to do more than the levy. Just can't. If you're
It's-
telling me- if you're telling me that.
no, I'm not saying it's all that. I'm saying it's a combination of
Right.
many things, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Many things. There's many moving parts to it. I think you're talking attrition, you're talking our employee survey. And if they're happy, that means, okay, we don't have to give them a raise, but staff is telling you that's what they're saying when they're leaving, or that's what when we give them their evaluation, they're angry at us. Do they leave it right that second? They're looking for a new job.
but
So,
how do I don't know?
So
That's my
how-
point. If-
so how
do
do
I
you
know
want
that
us to show you
without-
that?
without attrition
Do you have an
statistic?
idea how you could show them that?
Lisa, like, I want to step back for a second. Everything that I have asked you guys to do today is to tell you the arguments that you are making are not substantiated with data. They are feeling arguments. Oh, but we're only our revenue is going up. Is it good revenue? Can't tell me that. Oh, but our employees aren't happy. They complain because we get 4%. Is attrition going up? Can't tell me that.
We could tell you that.
You can, but that's literally, it's all I'm asking. I'm
Okay.
on board with a 4%. And I think your numbers are trying to help you develop your own arguments. I promise you that. I'm okay with 4%. I think your numbers. I think Bart's right. I think you'll find that your revenue that you're bringing in here is up. Volume spending. Because you are growing fast. Those are the things that we should take into consideration to build this formula for you.
I like Michael's point a lot, and I'm a data and objective analytical person, and I like to be able to look at things, and that's why I'm saying I need the inflation number on here. I need the real numbers. But I guess I'd go to a bigger concept right now, and I think you have to step back at times and say, we arguably are on the board of the best park district in the north part of Chicago and maybe the whole area. We're a dynamic park district. We didn't get here by luck. We got here because people worked hard. They made extra effort. They spent time grooming people. Sometimes people have been replaced because we wanted an even higher level of performance. I don't think our staff could be replaced by average people from another area. To maintain that level is not going to be easy. So there's part of me that really reacts to the thought that after reaching what in my 22 years in Glencoe is the best year I've ever seen for the Park District, we're going to say, we're going to reward you by adding stress across the board to all the senior people and underpay your staff. And that's the way I see it. I would be furious if we didn't do 4%. Look at the future years, get the data when you want, but to do something other than what John knows he can afford and matches everybody else after this extraordinary year. And I have to say one more thing. A majority of the Park District board members did not compliment Lisa after she explained what she'd done and accomplished this year. So we've argued about 0.25% of compensation, and I hold you responsible as well. You are the president of the board, and you would let Lisa do a presentation like this and not get any credit for it. People didn't. It's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary result, and no one, hardly anybody other than you and me, can be complimentary. But we'll argue for hours about 0.25% after an extraordinary. I don't know. I'm disappointed.
I think that's a point well taken, Bart. I think that is a really valid perspective. I think it's just more of a question about how long this can be going. But I think you make really good points.
I think you do this year, and then you go, what do we do next year? What's inflation next year? What is our turnover?
But I think you make really good points, and I think that it's a really good validation for the 4%. I just would like to see some sort of indication that it's sustainable.
I think you'll see it. I think with these numbers, I think with the numbers that we're asking, you'll see it. There's, to me, added the heads that you've added, our partner, you added a few up. Revenue's gone up, keeps in balance. I think you will see this through data that for every dollar you spend on payroll, add out of the revenue, every dollar you spend in 2020. That will justify it.
And I just want to, I agree merit wise, it's earned, and I want to give it the 4% and I want the data. I just don't want to leave us in a bad condition 5 years because we didn't think ahead. That's where I'm coming from. I don't want us
Michael's point.
5 years from now not to have a level of service because we didn't think about the future and we're just like, while the money's flowing, we're going to do whatever. And so that's why I guess I'm a credit analyst and that's like the way I look at
Right,
budgets.
and that's what Michael's saying is show it.
Because I just want to see
Show us
it.
the math. So, yeah, show us the math. I think that's a fair request.
Not even an argument with that.
Are you saying labor expenses as a percentage of gross revenue? Is that what you're saying?
That,
Yeah.
I get your,
print is a. All right, thank you.
I get what you're saying, Bart, but I've been on the board for years. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in the park district and staff. So this isn't an argument against here. It's just, it can't always be the sky's on fire and everyone's going to leave. That can't be the argument. There has to be more
That's right.
beyond that, because you could say that about anything, but we are very well run. We've been very well run. We've well run when we gave 3%. It has nothing to do with, we had a great year last year. We had a great year the year before. We always say that, although this last year. Of course, we know that. We know it's very well run. It's not what that's about. It's about how long can you continue this? And look, some of you guys have really high salaries. So you put on 4% over 5 years, where are we going to be at? Are we still competitive? We want to take care of the people who we feel we aren't paying right. We should be doing that anyway. People are overachieving, they should be promoted. You guys do that anyway. Like Michael said, there's other ways of doing it. We're arguing over 0.5% or 1%. This isn't, but it's the principle. It's the principle, and I won't be on the board, so I won't be this little voice in your head anymore, so you hear me. And I do feel like you guys all give in at the end, and you guys, we don't stick to it. And at some point, you cannot sustain it. I don't care how much money we bring in. There's just no way if you keep going up and up. And like you said, we're going to set that expectation. But if you go to 3, which is still a nice increase, people are going to be like, what did we do wrong? We can't put ourselves in that position. That's all. It's not about how great everybody is. Like, it's not. I hope you guys know that. Obviously, it's not.
Well, I think I think I'm fine if you want to go with 3.75, as long as when that salary survey comes back, that we have honest talk about where our staff is. You may in your mind think we're the top tier or so overpaid, and I would disagree with that based on experience. And I think the salary survey will show that. So we have to decide as a district if we want to keep the best people, and that's from the ground on all the way up. If you want to keep the best people, then you have to be competitive in our area and in our industry. I think the salary survey will show that. I like these other points. No one's ever asked for these before. We can provide this data. But I also think when we get that salary survey, we take an honest look at, really look at what the industry is demanding now. And really look at what our neighboring districts are paying, what the village is paying for their staff, and how could you say the village can afford it and we can't? So I think we have to look at all that kind of stuff. I'm fine with 3.75 if we take an honest look at that salary survey, we can get it, and that we make adjustments where needed if it is.
I think that's an appropriate way to do
Right?
it.
I think so.
And I think
I'd
that
be fine with that.
the board would be willing to fund that salary adjustment and then layer on the merit on
Then-
top of
We
it.
did that for the teachers.
Because
We-
that's.
we've
gonna
made
be
market
more meaningful.
We did because the,
$15.
My God, we can't keep teachers, can't do anything. Need extra level.
We converted them from part-time employees to full-time
Right.
employees and added
and
health
we- and
insurance.
minimum, you have to remember, minimum wage keeps on going up. So the last 5 years, it's gone up, what, $1 every year?
Yeah, $1 every
No, but that's part of the,
compression,
exactly.
obviously.
I would have no problem with doing 3.75, and then when, in March, whenever the salary survey is done, that we'd really take a look, and then maybe in our budget, we put some money in there for those adjustments that may be needed,
And I think
once we
we've
get the
been
information back, which we haven't yet. But
Yeah, and I think we've been very fair about that over the years. Always looked at it, thought, we're not being fair and competitive. We've adjusted
Okay.
it. We've done that.
Yeah,
I just think you got to, I personally, I just. Justify that for.
That's a reasonable request.
And the issue that bringing up, Stephanie, is the same issue that we have to is the new 30 or is 30 the new 40? Then the new base. Is that where the work? Right? But
was it 3.75?
I think we don't have that determined. I think the board is willing to go to 4 based on the data, but I would be okay with 3.75 if it doesn't justify it.
say that
So,
at a minimum, at least Michael, Bart, at a minimum, 3.75. I don't think Bart, you would go to lower than that.
I wouldn't vote for under 4.
So you've got at least 3. I think anything under, I think it's going to go higher. Can we discuss this at our next meeting?
John, you have to answer.
I'll just say it's going to get pretty tight with the budget. If we're planning on presenting the budget at the February committee meeting, obviously this is a big part of it, and that budget document's
But
it's
you could put in the budget 4%, and the actual raises we give don't have to match that budget. It's just a blueprint.
that would just be a little more headroom that
Yeah.
would I just mean
$30,000.
Can I make a request too? Can we put in a bigger bonus pool?
Yeah.
Because that's something I would be comfortable doing because it was such a good year. I just
know.
don't want to build it all into the base. If we have the money and we did a good job, I don't see why.
That's exactly what we have started doing that, and that's what I was talking about. Like we have started at the expectation.
But I do think that, to Bart's point, if we want to reward performance. And I think that's a good way of
Mhm.
doing it.
And also to part of the year, we office board. But I hope that throughout the year, and after the
100 to 10?
and we all talked about how incredible this is. It didn't come out tonight.
What is our current bonus policy?
Pulling that up right now. So we budgeted $45,000 for fiscal 25.
$10.5.
I mean, I almost feel like we could even double. That's not very much.
Yeah, that includes, yeah, right, when you start obviously spreading it out, it,
Yeah.
correct.
1.5% increases.
I'd like to raise that. I'm not necessarily tying it to it. I just think I think that the bonus pool should be dependent on, in the private sector, a combination of merit and financial performance. And that it can fluctuate. And maybe that's something we can build a better guidance around. But I think that is going to be getting an extra $1,000, $2,000, 5,000, 10, whatever so an individual gets out of that, sounds like is actually probably more meaningful than potentially on a lower salary than extra 0.5 or 2.25%, because it looks like a meaningful number. It feels like something that you can actually make a purchase that you were waiting on, or pay off a credit card bill or whatever. Those are meaningful payments. That can feel really real and
Yeah.
resonate.
I agree.
And I think
Absolutely.
that way you can really capture a lot better than playing between a 3 and a 5% range like that. You can really make somebody feel like special.
What would you like to see that at?
I don't know what other people think. I don't know how it compares to the budget. I don't want to set ridiculous expectations for every year, but frankly, that's not a big number, 45 to me out of the whole.
No, it's, you can't reward all the full-time staff with that.
Yeah, I'd
We
like
never
to.
have.
I think we should start at least.
But we limit that, yeah. The time you take taxes out.
Or make
can
it
give
different.
something,
If
yeah.
someone if this was that phenomenal year, you wanted to, I don't know how it gets divvied out.
It'll be fun. And I don't want to 9, 10. End of my, but how find it? Is it
I think the referendum was pretty.
Passing a referendum,
And the
70%.
comprehensive.
DDA, comprehensive plan, those are huge tasks. That take their,
But what do you, so next year? We don't have a referendum. We're not gonna do a master plan.
the projects,
Yeah, the
that
projects on
we're-
budget.
projects we're doing, which are incredibly,
If they're like done on
Actually,
time and executed.
Yeah, on time, on budget.
yeah.
I think the
Weinberg was example.
that tangible goal. The tangible goals. Get X% bonus.
It's always been that the board sets the bonus amount and the director and the team gives out the bonuses. That's what it has been in the past.
Can we make a supplemental appropriation every year in February to add to it if we had a good year?
Yeah, we,
Just get it done. Stock price did this, your goal did that, you were at this, you met that, and you do it in the, everyone's aligned so that when the times like this, the conversation we have, not bickering and moaning between the five of us. They did this, they did that, they get their extra bonus. Like, that's why we're here, I think. It's because we don't have a great, it's,
I'd like to, what if we did 75 instead of 45?
yeah, we build in headroom for our appropriations. So there is, given where we're at, I last updated you all on projections, I believe in October, but obviously based on our forecasts, that's certainly affordable within what we're projecting this year. And then the other consideration, as I mentioned, is the appropriation. We need to be sure we don't exceed appropriation, which we do have the headroom for that type of increase.
Well, I think we're not voting on anything. We're going to get more information.
And I'll just say with the budget amount and the salary, and just from my perspective, we go to IPRA conference, the numbers, it's a big document. So even a small change from my perspective, what I more meant is just having that budget book ready to go for you all. If we are making minor changes, I know it's not going to impact things in the grand scheme of things, but making sure schedules tie out and things like that, I have to go through my review process, and that's where I just need to have enough time to be able to turn the document around. That's more what it's about.
Yeah, I guess that's something where I think that there is flexibility at the end of the year if we outperform financially to allocate additional money, and that could just be a discussion every year, and that would be part of combination of merit and financial performance.
There is,
That's what I
yes.
would say. It can't be all tied to financial.
No, no.
And if we want to table this discussion, we have plenty of time. We have cushion in the budget timeline. We can present the budget at the February meeting, board meeting, if we chose to give us another couple weeks, as opposed to just doing the committee meeting that we typically do. Yeah, about 15%. Correct. For sure. We want to pay attention to line items and funds and everything, but we should have adequate headroom. Yes.
Do you feel like you have enough guidance from the board for?
For what data we'd like to bring back, for sure. I think we can certainly work through that.
Helpful. I think we could add this as a discussion at the end of the next committee meeting until waiting for.
Or
The next
or
board.
meeting.
That's the next board meeting
Yeah.
in 2 weeks.
In
That's
2
what I
weeks.
meant.
And then if we do that, I'd like to see if we could push back the budget presentation though from committee in February to the board meeting in February, just a couple weeks.
And when do we have to approve the final budget?
That would be approved we approved the budget in March. That's just the budget. The BAO is the important thing, and that's in April. So the budget and appropriation ordinance is where we need all the legal notice and everything. And that's still a month ahead of time because we can approve it if we needed to, we could approve it in May. We just need to file it with the county by the end of May.
I'm fine with that as long as it doesn't make it too tight in case something comes up. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that still gives us plenty of time in terms of 30 days, posting everything and everything that we need to do in terms of public notice and everything with the budget and appropriation ordinance.
That sounds good. And so I think we should do that. And I think we should consider not today or at the next couple meetings, but in 2025, coming up with some more of a, I don't know if policy is the right word, but guidelines around how we consider bonus pool and factors we consider for raises, just so that obviously we don't want to make it so structured that we can't adhere, we don't have flexibility, but I think it's helpful for employees to know that before it's pay time so that they can And it makes it easier for staff to communicate. With that, I know it is late. Does anybody have any final comments, or can we revisit this in 2 weeks?
We have, meeting on, the 21st, first and second,
And,
first and third Tuesday.
and Lisa, if you want to have a one or
Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. All right. I know, I thought we were gonna be, I was like, oh, I'm gonna say goodnight to my kids. Never mind.